Hey guys, I'm back in my storage unit, and while I was here I thought I'd answer another question I get asked often, which is, where do I get spare parts from? Well, servicing TVs back in the day was a big business, and there were a number of companies that just made replacement parts, especially transformers and coils, things like vertical output transformers, yokes, of course picture tubes, and all the smaller tubes inside, even replacement knobs. And occasionally all these parts show up on eBay. But as you can imagine, for more popular sets, more popular today, I mean, with collectors like these Predictas, or sets that didn't sell too well back in the day, those spare parts are really hard to find. Here's another example. Admiral. Many Admiral TVs were made, and parts are pretty common even today, including the knobs. I see new old stock replacement knobs and shrink wrap show up on eBay now and then. But what you rarely find is a control door. These would break off, get lost, and I'm pretty sure replacements were never made. Even this one's got a crack, so the only place you're going to get one is from another set. Which brings us back to these Predictas. So these are two I picked up a while ago, but I've never talked about them. Funny little backstory to this is, these were sold on a local auction, an in-house auction, but they allowed you to participate online. There were 3 Predictas in the lot. I lost out. That was a few years ago. Didn't think about it. I was like, oh well, can't win them all. And lo and behold, I got a tip that there were some Predictas for sale on Craigslist. And at the time, I did not realize they were the same sets until I went to check them out and talked to the seller, and he told me where I got them. I'm like, oh, these are the same sets that I lost out on. And in hindsight, I'm kind of glad I did. Why? Because, well, this is a case of you can't save them all. That's something you don't hear me say very often, but for sure at least one of these is definitely not worth saving. And I think that would be this guy. So right away you can notice there's a number of issues, like they don't have any knobs. Predicta knobs are quite hard to come by and expensive when you do. This one is in especially poor condition. It's rusty. This tape is here for good reason. It's the only thing really holding this together, because every single screw is missing from this set. The screw that holds the CRT on, back of the CRT housing's gone, back of the set's gone, the chassis is not secure, the control harness isn't secure. Not one single screw is left in this thing, and there's a number of bits missing, like the back, like the knobs, even the caps that go on here are gone. I can't quite tell. Yeah, okay, this is a debutante. I knew it was a debutante body, but I wasn't sure what was underneath this cap, because a set like this has arms. That's a Siesta. So I thought maybe this was a transplanted head from a Princess or a Siesta, and the arms were just missing, but there's no corresponding place for the arm to connect down here. So now I know what a debutante head has underneath that cap. Anyways, let's continue. So yeah, it is a friggin' mess inside. Just everything flopping around. Somebody has done some ugly repair attempt in the past. Stuff flopping around. This was tacked in. I'm not sure. Let's see. I have little rectifiers there. I don't know about the condition of the flyback. But anyways, all I'm trying to get at is, I think this will be a part set, because I do have some other Predictas, like that one. The other. So this is the Siesta I got a while ago. It's in really good condition. It actually works fairly well on the original parts. But the other one I got recently that was incredibly filthy turned out to have a visible line, horizontal line, burned into the CRT that I expect will be very visible when the set is running. So perhaps I can swap out this CRT. I have no idea if it's good or not. I haven't checked out anything in this set yet. but it's there. It appears to be intact, so I want to fire that up on a tester and see if it's any good. All right, so this is another debutante. This is the beige. I think there's the only two colors it came in, whereas the Princess also came in red and the Siesta came in gold. I think the debutante just came in this sort of very dark brown, blackish color and beige. Not too exciting. But this one is in a little bit better shape. Also missing the back, though. Also missing the rear of the CRT housing. Again, a part that you don't find very often. Rusty. Chassis appears to be a bit better condition. Also not attached. I didn't even realize that. I knew the other one was loose. I didn't realize this one was too. Yuck. Its first blush. I don't think it's been worked on. Not going to work too well without the fusistor, which is just disintegrated and falling away. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the guy I got these from realized that they were beyond his skill to repair and in worse shape than he initially realized, so I ended up getting them at a pretty reasonable price. The third Predicta was a holiday, and I just wasn't interested in it. I just got these two debutantes. Alright, so the other thing about this set is the picture tube, which I'm also, fingers crossed, is good, but right away I knew there was an issue with it because something looks amiss there. It's melted glob and there's a pin missing. So what I do believe happened, well, actually in there's the missing pin. Somebody might have been a little overzealous in removing this and broke the pin off the CRT. And then probably tried to solder a wire onto the stub, which can be done and not for the faint of heart. I've done it once before successfully. I say that because, well, you don't want to rupture the vacuum. And in this case, it looks like there's barely anything sticking out. That happened with the other CRT that I resurrected. On that one, I actually had to carefully file away some of the glass. I may have to do that again here. However, there is one really big thing in my favor, assuming this picture tube's any good. That is the focus pin. Potentially, it'll work fairly well without anything connected to it. It's electrostatic focus. You typically connect it to 0 volts or a few hundred volts. And there's essentially no current that flows. So if I do need to connect it to something, I could just take like a pin, just a real sharp pinpoint, just so it can make contact, like epoxy it in place, and then attach something or ground it to one of these other pins. In other words, I don't really need to solder onto that. No significant current's going to flow. I just need to connect it to something, potentially. No pun intended. But electrostatic focus, I have seen sets where it wasn't connected to anything, and they can look okay. So we'll see. But and I don't know if either of these are the original CRTs or replacements. I'm not entirely sure what type they are, what the filament voltage is, but they both have the short necks so they don't stick out the back. So that's also a big plus. So that will be the next order of business, I think, for both of these is to, well, this one's already loose, so I can just pull this off and take it with me. This one, it looks like I need, I don't know if I got a screwdriver on me, but I'll have to take that big screw out. And there's a few connectors on here. Well, maybe they've already been undone. That's one of them. And then the head pulls off. And get these home and test them with the CR70, and I'm sure you're all waiting with bated breath to find out if they're any good or not. So I will certainly show you when I test them. But I thought you might be interested in taking this little look at a couple somewhat recent acquisitions and to see what I consider to be a set that is beyond restoration. To give you some ideas, so let's say this one. I believe replica backs were made, maybe still are. 50, 75 bucks, something like that. So you get it back. Back of the CRT housing, maybe once in a blue moon they come up for sale. 40, 50 bucks. Yeah, you could live without it. Okay. You could certainly repaint the cabinet. This cloth has got some tears in it. This one's kind of filthy. Maybe between the two you get one decent looking one. That is not the right channel knob. It looks like the fine tuning is gone. But those knobs were used on a number of Philco models, so yeah, maybe 20, 30 bucks you could get a fine tuning and a channel knob. Power contrast. That's going to be the real killer. Those were never, replicas have never been made of those. I've seen some new old stock replacements that were available back in the day. You could easily spend 75 bucks just for those two little knobs. Add all that together, you're going to end up spending more in the missing bits than you can buy an entire very nice looking example of this set. They typically sell unrestored for between $200 and $300, all with all the bits and pieces there. So do you really want to spend $200 to $300 to find the missing bits and pieces? Probably not. Now, me personally, I have a spare power volume contrast knob. I'm pretty sure I've got a spare fine tuning and channel knob. So, depending on how things go, I might restore one of these. But I do need some bits and pieces. So I need one of these picture tubes, very likely for my other Siesta. And that one has some cracks in the screen cover. So I'm hoping one of these can be the donor to that. And I got another Predicta that's also pretty nice that has some screen issues too. Also has some cracks in the protective cover. So I kind of have to weigh my options. Maybe someday replicas will be made of these. I've been in talk with people for years now about making reproductions for the 21-inch ones. Those are the ones with a tenite that really rot and corrode and stink and shrink and warp, and there's definitely a need for those. These are made out of a different kind of plastic, some kind of early plexiglass or something like that. They don't cloud over, they don't get moldy, they don't shrink and all that, but they are kind of brittle. So I think there's also some demand for these, but I mean, we're talking 10, 20 grand setup cost to make a mold, and then however much it costs to make each one. Figure it's got to be at least $100, maybe $200 a pop. So, hey, maybe someday we'll get a Kickstarter campaign going and try to get the help of the entire Philco collector community. I mean, 10 grand, 100 people chip in $100. There's your 10 grand startup cost. If the screens can be made for $100 a pop, hey, I'd be willing to buy a few. But we'll see. Yeah, 3D printing. Well, if 3D printing can make an optically clear thing this large, awesome, but I don't think we're quite there yet. All right, so I'm going to get these CRTs home, and I'll show you how they test out. Okay, back in the basement with my trusty Suncor CR70 CRT tester. First up is the one with the broken off focus pin, and I noticed, once I got out of the set, that this is indeed the original Philco low voltage 2.68 volt filament CRT. You got to be careful when you test these, because they are not like most picture tubes, which run on 6.3 volts. These run on 2.68. So I've got my Suncor down in the lowest voltage range, and we're going to turn it on, and we're going to turn this up to where we are about 2 3/4. And let's see, do we have a glow? doesn't really look like it. Well, that's not a good sign. It's not looking good. What I'm doing is connecting and disconnecting the filament and watching the meter. On a good CRT, the meter would dip when I hook up the filament because it's drawing current from the supply. Well, I'm going to get a no meter and double check all my connections. Well, the filament is completely open. It appears that where that focus pin broke off, it may very well have broken the seal on the CRT. So that's that. Am I disappointed? Sure, but for what I paid, I'm fine. I still made out great with all the spare parts I got, especially the screen cover, which I really wanted, so oh well. Here's the other one. This has no label that I can see, and the orientation on the key and the appearance of it looks a little different than the other, so I suspect this may very well be a replacement. I did measure the resistance, and I got 1 ohm, so that's a good sign, but I don't know if it's a low voltage or a 6.3 volt CRT, nor am I for sure about the pinout, although typically when it's been replaced and some of the replacement CRTs, the pinout's a little different. Sometimes G1 and G2 are flipped. But when that happens, typically you'd see a splice on this, and they rewired the socket. This one doesn't appear to be, so it's a good indication that this has the same pinout as the original. So, without further ado, don't really see a glow on this guy either. Oh yeah, no, I do. So a couple ways to know for sure what voltage it should be. An easy thing to do is for me to put this in current mode, disconnect one of these clips, and put these leads in series with it. The original ran at 2.68 volts and drew 450 milliamps. So if I hook this up and the current is way different than that, like a lot lower, then it's a pretty good indicator that this is a 6.3 volt CRT. So that is what I'm going to do. Okay, I disconnected one of the filament leads, clipped it onto my multimeter in AC amperage mode, and let's see what we get. Well, that's a pretty darn good sign that this is indeed a low voltage type, just about 0.45 amps. Alright, so I'm going to hook the clip back up and proceed to check the emissions. Alrighty, let's check for HK shorts. No HK shorts, no G1 shorts. So we got fantastic cutoff control. Supposed to adjust this control so we're in the black zone on the meter. Wow. If this is the original CRT, that's really low hours. I haven't had this powered up for very long, and the emissions are well into the good range, and it has great cutoff control. Let's do a little life test. Dang. Alright, well, one dud, one basically tests like a brand new picture tube. So, hey, I'll take it. Alright, so And this is the one that's all taped up and from the totally messed up set. Go figure. Well, that's going to be it for now. I just wanted to give you a little taste of what it's like in the TV restoration business. You harvest parts where you can, you save what you can, you scavenge what you can. And sometimes you lose, sometimes you win.